Good evening. My name is Daniel, and welcome to my channel. Um, this is going to be sort of a weekend wrap up. Well, actually, it's a wrap up of the last 2 weeks, honestly. Um, the good news is I've been reading a lot more than I normally have been this past year, but I'm reading at a pace where I haven't really been able to keep up filming my responses to it. So today is going to be a bit of a cleanup. I'm trying to film this again at night. It is currently Saturday night, and the house is finally quiet. I had a lot of success filming my last video during this time, so maybe this is just the time I can do this where, like, I won't be interrupted constantly with a barrage of small questions. So, anyway, things that I've read. The first book I've read, I've already talked about in a full video of its own. That is Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita. This what I read for the banned books project that we are doing here on YouTube. We're trying to read 24 banned books in the year 2024. This was beautifully written. I will give it that. But like the subject matter, results may vary of whether or not you can stomach this book. I personally actually really liked it for the most part. I'm interested in reading a lot more Nabokov now. One book in particular, I think it's called the Luzvin Defense, or in the English translation I have, is just The Defense. It's a book about chess, and I'm an enthusiast about chess, so that's more up my alley, though I will note that I have to get that book by way of a translator. Lolita, I believe, was written purely in English, and therefore you get Vladimir Nabokov directly, whereas, you know, for other books that weren't written in English, it had other translators translating them, so it's filtered. So I don't know if it'll be as good as this stylistically, but I'm still going to look forward to it just the same. I've been participating in another event called Holmes is Where the Heart Is. That's throughout the month of February, the season of love. We're reading Sherlock Holmes stories. The first book I read week 1 was The Hound of the Baskervilles, which was fantastic. I did a video dedicated to that as well. But week 2 and week 3, I kind of have to consolidate here. Week 2, though, was really simple. We just wanted to read something from the Sherlock Holmes short canon. And since I have all of the stories in 2 volumes here in paperback, I read The Adventure of the Empty House. This is sort of the... if you get it in a collection, it's in the Return of Sherlock Holmes. And it's referred to as that because Sherlock Holmes in the story The Final Problem died. Allegedly, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wanted to stop writing Sherlock Holmes stories. He had other more serious literature that he wanted to pursue, but his fans weren't having it. And so while Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Moriarty plummeted off the Reichenbach Falls in Switzerland, seemingly to their deaths, turns out Sherlock Holmes faked his own death in this story. They brought him back because fans weren't satisfied with just having novels released in the interim that took place before he fell off the falls. They wanted him back proper. So this story brought him back. There's not much of a mystery in this story, so it's more of all of the excitement is in the fact that Sherlock Holmes is just returning from like years of hiding when people assumed he was dead, including Dr. Watson. Dr. Watson takes special interest in sort of a small mystery that isn't really pursued much within the story, where this gentleman is locked in a room with no gun by himself and somehow is killed by a pistol wound, which makes no sense. There's no pistol. There's no real easy access to the room. And so, that's the mystery that gets the short story started. But at the end, it has more to do with like Holmes revealing himself to Watson. Yes, I've been alive all this time, but in hiding because a couple of Moriarty's gang members also knew that I survived. They tried to kill me on the falls by throwing rocks at me, and now I need your help in capturing them. So they go into hiding, and someone tries to assassinate what they think is Sherlock Holmes. And beyond that, I'm not gonna spoil it further. It's a good story, but it's not quite a Sherlock Holmes mystery. Like I said, the big excitement of this was just like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is just like, yes, I will return Sherlock Holmes to you, the fans, and keep the lights on, and keep getting paid for my stories. So it's worth checking out. I have ulterior motive to picking this story as well, but I'll get to that in a second. The next book I read is, I don't know if you can see that. I read Mycroft Holmes by Kareem, Abdul-Jabbar, and Anna Waterhouse. This is for prompt 3 for week 3 of Holmes is Where the Heart Is, where we read Pastiche of Sherlock Holmes. And excuse me, 1 second, sorry. And I always liked Mycroft as a character. And Sherlock Holmes, he's only appeared in like 4 stories or so, but I found him interesting because he's like Sherlock Holmes' smarter brother, and Sherlock Holmes is pretty smart, so like almost like supernaturally smart brother. So I wanted to check out a story about Mycroft Holmes. This is Pastiche, and while this book was a good adventure story, I don't think it succeeded at all for being a Sherlock Holmes story, or any of the Sherlock Holmes characters. I don't think any of the canonical characters really they didn't really succeed at capturing the essence of those characters. We get to see a very different Mycroft Holmes, and I do have a couple sections I just want to point out. So this is Mycroft Holmes has like a fiance, which is strange in and of itself. He's 23 at the point of this story, but this description: inside the cab, Georgiana leaned towards him and rested her hand gently on his bicep. He was immediately conscious of flexing that bicep, of the ridiculous longing to impress her with his sculpted physique, which, to this point in his tenure on Earth, was more nature's endowment than his own doing, more the luck of the genetic draw. So we have already a very buff Mycroft, which is not how he's ever described. And it's just weird that like he's going out of his way to flex for this woman that he loves. Like, so far, there are points where like they know what a genius he is, but we don't really get to see it all that much in the story, other than like the brief mentioning that, yeah, he has eidetic memory. Anything he reads, if he chooses, he can just recall instantly years later. But like the actions that Mycroft takes, they don't feel like the actions of a genius. So like the only points where he's a genius is where they just outright tell you, yes, he's a genius. And then some of the things that he's a genius about is like memorizing the timing of random things. Like at one point he's being chased through London. He goes into like these this worse neighborhood where like it's a rougher area, and he's being chased by like 6 guys along with his friend Douglas. I don't know why that was a man. Douglas was like the best character in the book because he was new and unique. Anyways, he and his friend Douglas are being chased by a bunch of ruffians because Douglas is from Trinidad and is a black-skinned man, and Mycroft Holmes is very progressive in his thoughts on the matter. And so whenever they're shown to be chummy, then a bunch of people just want to beat them up. So they're being chased by ruffians, and they go into this really bad area in town, and like he pulls out his pocket watch and realizes, oh, in 30 seconds I need to get over to the side. And suddenly like all these women emptying like their chamber pots, just like dump them all out in unison, like 3 women at the same time, and just drench the bad guys. And he's like, yes, well, I did notice that they always put out their wash at this time of day. I'm like, that's really dumb. Unless they're like coordinated dancers, they're not going to do it to the second every day. Like it was weird. I'm like, that's what you chose to demonstrate his genius. Um, Sherlock Holmes also at one point is described as disdaining anyone who has like bad habits, and it points out that he excludes himself and his tobacco use. And I'm like, I know Sherlock is in like college at this point, but like he's a cocaine addict. He shoots up cocaine. Like there's just very weird characterizations of the characters. And honestly, I thought if this had been a book that had nothing to do with Sherlock Holmes, it would have been a really fun adventure. And it still wasn't bad. I have the sequel to this book, so I'm gonna give that a shot. It's still like enjoyable enough where I want to just continue it since I own it. But I don't really see myself keeping the hard copy of the book. Fortunately, I read this on my Kindle, which, sidebar, I've been really enjoying reading on the Kindle a lot lately, and I caught myself doing a bunch of dumb things with it, and I'm just trying to break myself of the habit of it. Like, I didn't know what a word meant here, so I pulled out my phone and started looking up the word. I'm like, wait a minute. All I have to do is just, press on the word, and then it'll magically give me the definition. And then also, something that I heard about from MJ at Reading This Life, she had a video on like some Kindle tricks. And one of them is that you can totally get Alexa to read your audiobook for you. So if you have the Alexa app on your phone, which I do because some of my things are run in my house by Alexa, you can just put on headphones, pull up the Alexa app, and ask it to read one of your Kindle books. And so, like, at points today where I was finishing this up, because I finished this today, I had to do dishes, and I didn't want to stop reading, so I just tried it. And while it's a little bit monotone, I mean, she's not, like, a vivacious reader, it still got the job done, and I was able to, like, continue reading my Kindle book. And when I went back to the Kindle, it magically knew where I'd stopped on my audio and just continued from there. So Kindle books, man, they're getting really good. I don't know how long this has been a functionality, but like sometimes you just need to be reminded, or like even just told that these are functions that you can have. Also, when I was going through the attic looking for something today, and I found my very first Kindle, my old second generation Kindle keyboard with its poor little screen that means I can never use it again. I miss this thing. I especially miss these buttons. These were the best. This feels better than a Paperwhite in my hand. I just like this, but it's dead. Dead soldier. All right. Other events that have happened recently. We have one moment. We've had GarbAugust 2.5 last weekend, and that was the Wasted Weekend, where we decided to read something trashy for the weekend in honor of GarbAugust. GarbAugust is a month-long event that we can't seem to get enough of, where we just read trashy literature, anything that like is considered garbage. And among those things is novelizations. So I read the novelization for Star Wars. This was written by Alan Dean Foster. It was ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster, based on the script of George Lucas, and it was actually really good. I'm not honestly huge fan of Star Wars. Like, I like it just fine, but like I'm not like Star Wars. And I never really liked A New Hope all that much. It was fine. It's a good movie, but like it just never did it for me. But I actually enjoyed this novelization more than the movie. And from what I researched, this was released actually before the movie. So this was like the first taste of Star Wars in this novel. It's actually called Star Wars: From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker. Things I liked about the book. Generally, it's pretty close to scene by scene A New Hope, but like it was slowed down, and I appreciated that. But we also got to see the backstory of Luke Skywalker. We get to meet his friend Biggs, who is like, he runs into in the movie, but like we never get to see him on Tatooine when he's just Luke's friend. And Luke Skywalker's nickname was Wormy, and I didn't know that. I guess they brought it back in one of the comics, but Wormy Skywalker got to go on his adventure. He seemed far less whiny in this than Hamill did in the movie, but still, it was really good, and we got a lot of the deleted scenes that I've only ever seen in the special features of the special editions. So Jabba the Hutt makes an appearance, but this is not the same Jabba that we're used to, because in the early incarnation, they filmed that with a human man in the role. And so we get a Jabba with hair, described as having a scarred head and shaggy head. So I'm just imagining him with hair whipping through the breeze, and it just amused me. But pretty much that's just shot for shot Star Wars. But I liked it. It was really enjoyable. So I think I'm going to continue reading some of the old novelizations. I think the next one's also written by Alan Dean Foster, who pretty much wrote every novelization as far as I'm aware. So that was good. Finally, I finished the second book in the Amber series. This is The Great Book of Amber, and this is by Roger Zelazny. This is something Michael K. Vaughan has been reading through. I think he may have finished already. I'm not quite positive anymore. He's a lot further than I am, in any case. I decided I'm just going to try to read only one a month. Though, the second book, The Guns of Avalon, was really good. I kind of bounced off of the first story a little bit. I still liked it, but it was a little slow and repetitive, and the powers of the main character, Corwin, were a little nebulous, and I thought a little too godlike in the book. And in this one, it's more of a fantasy horror mixture, but also they gave a lot of limitations to Corwin's power, and just having that means that there are stakes. And when there's stakes involved, now I can get into the story, because it's just isn't an omnipotent being who can just pull anything out of anywhere. He still can shift into other planes and stuff and find exact realities that match his whim, but there are more limitations. This is the reality where if you need this item that's only in this reality, you can only go to this reality and get it, so you have to deal with the problems of this reality. It gave things a lot more of a boundary, and the story was much better off for that. It's really hard to talk about this without over explaining this. It's still a very strange book series so far, but I'm enjoying it. And what I'm reading now is I just started Flashman and the Tiger, and you'll notice our friend here is Sherlock Holmes. For the fourth week of Holmes is Where the Heart Is, I was just gonna do a Star Trek comic, because I didn't really knew I had a lot of things that were inspired by Sherlock Holmes, which is the prompt. Though I was going through my bookshelf and I just found a whole bunch of Sherlock Holmes pastiche. So apparently I had more options than I thought I did. So I was originally going to cop out and read a Star Trek comic, Who Killed Captain Kirk, just because it was a murder mystery. And I didn't know that that on my computer, somehow, I obtained a copy of the Next Generation comic that had Data as Sherlock Holmes. It was called, I can't remember the name of it now. But we'll talk about it later, because I'm gonna read that as well as Who Killed Captain Kirk, as well as reading Flashman and the Tiger. I believe this is the final Flashman novel chronologically, as far as dates go. That's how I chose to read the series. I read the other 11 in the chronology of Flashman's life, which is not how they were written. And honestly, the last one was pretty weak. So this is the last Flashman book I own, and I've actually really enjoyed that series. So I'm hoping this one's a little bit better. So far, the only criticism I heard is that in this book, there's Sherlock Holmes, which this has always been like a historical based book series, with the exception of Royal Flash, which took place in a country that doesn't exist because it was like a riff off of Zenda. This one, though, from what I've heard, and it had to do with my selection for my short story, is that it kind of ties into the final problem. Or not the final problem, I'm sorry, the adventure of the empty house. I guess one of the characters makes an appearance in this book. And so that's why I chose that short story, because even though it wasn't much of a mystery, if it ties into this, it gives me like a little more background on this. But I don't really know much about this yet because I just started. So hopefully it's as good as a lot of the other Flashman novels have been. So that's it. Other than the comics that I've read, which I'll talk about in other videos, that has been my reading 2 weeks. That's been my reading fortnight. So I hope you all are doing well, and I will talk to you later. Thank you.